What are you planning to do? Stand there all day to ruin the atmosphere for the whole family? I am not saying anything, Simone. That is right, you never say anything at all. You just stand there, face heavy like a funeral, acting like I am the one at fault. I only asked why Adrian is going on this trip. Because he is my colleague, Marcus. I cannot believe you are overreacting to such a small thing, right in front of the two kids. She lowered her voice into a hiss, enough for me to hear, enough for the 3 people lining up nearby to hear too. Do you know what? You have kept a heavy face since leaving the house. You are about to ruin this whole trip. Go home. I stood there for a second, looking at the woman who had been my wife for 17 years, under the fluorescent lights of Gate B14, with a brand new outfit and the laugh she had just cut short to turn and yell at me. I did not yell back. I did not ask another question about Adrian, about the way his hand still often rested closer to her back than a colleague should place it. I only said one word. All right. She did not know, when turning her back to walk into the middle of the strange crowd, she had just spoken the last sentence I would still let her say without having to pay the price for it. Before I tell you what happened next, if you believe patience should never be mistaken for weakness, take a moment to subscribe. Stories like this remind us that even the quietest person eventually reaches a point where they must stand up for themselves. I am 42 years old, and I learned carpentry since 17. Learning how a wooden joint fits together so smoothly that not a drop of glue is needed. My father said mortise and tenon can only endure if the craftsman measures correctly right from the first saw cut. Measuring wrong by 1 millimeter, the whole cabinet will warp after a few years. Slowly, but surely. I have built furniture for hundreds of other families over the past 20 years. I kept thinking I could also build a home for myself, securely like that. I did not answer her immediately. Behind me, Elias, 16 years old, his limbs clumsy due to excitement before the big trip, dropped his phone. It hit the tile floor, the screen facing up for exactly half a second before the boy could grab it. That half second was enough for me to see. A message thread between him and his mother from 3 weeks ago. After this trip, you and I will talk seriously about Dad. I did not say anything. I just looked, then turned away, like the way people look at a nail sticking up from a board. You memorize its position, then still walk on, so no one sees you stop. In that moment, standing under the airport gate lights, I drifted to a completely different place. Back to Mount Zion Church the year I was 25 years old, wearing a rented suit, watching 21-year-old Simone stepping forward in her mother's veil. Both kids were still too young to understand how much 17 years of promises truly costs a person. I used to think I had found the person to build something lasting with. Standing at that gate, I asked myself again which version of her I had married. The girl in the veil that day, or the woman laughing out loud 6 steps away from me, as if I were luggage she decided not to carry anymore. There are a few things you need to know before I continue telling. I had planned for this trip for 8 full months, not a few weeks. 8 months. I paid for the whole package. 4 VIP tickets to watch the World Cup group stage in Miami, over $1,000 a ticket. 3 nights in an ocean view hotel, the room type Simone had pinned to the photo board on her phone back in October, a private tour at Hard Rock Stadium. I booked through an acquaintance of a client I once built a whole oak kitchen cabinet set for. I had a whole spreadsheet. That is right, a real spreadsheet, clearly noting the food Amara likes colored in blue, Elias's snacks according to each departure gate, confirmation codes printed on paper folded neatly in my breast pocket, because I do not trust the airport Wi-Fi with anything important. Simone that day wore a cream-colored travel outfit I had never seen before. Perhaps the price tag was just cut in the airport restroom, if I understand her correctly. On her wrist, there was also a thin gold bracelet I did not recognize. And I noticed, in the way people notice small details without yet knowing why it is important, she kept spinning that bracelet. She checked her phone once every few minutes, with a kind of restlessness, unlike someone who is eager to go on vacation. She was laughing and joking with Adrian Cole, her 31-year-old colleague. The kind of laugh that makes people 2 gates away also have to turn their heads to look back. Then, in front of the 2 children, in front of a whole line of people queuing to board the plane of about 40 strangers, she said it again. This time louder, as if she needed witnesses. I am telling the truth, Marcus. You have kept a heavy face since leaving the house. You are about to ruin this whole trip. Go home. A woman pulling a suitcase stopped short. An airline employee lifted their head from the scanner. My daughter, Amara, 13 years old, stood dead still in the way she always stands when trying not to cry in front of others. I want you to know one thing about me, because it is important for everything that happens after this. I never raise my voice. Not even once. My mother, Corrine, taught me that a man who has to yell to be heard has already lost that argument. So I did not yell. I looked at my wife of 17 years standing there under the fluorescent lights of Gate B14 with the new outfit and the borrowed laugh. And I said exactly one word. All right. Then I turned around, walked back towards the terminal doors, past the coffee counter, the shoeshine counter, out into the thick heat of Georgia State on the tarmac. I did not smash anything. I did not raise my hands. I did not even raise my voice. I just walked away. But there is one thing Simone did not know when watching my back growing smaller in that hallway. Still smiling a little, still acting for whoever was watching. She thought she had just won something. She thought this was the end to a nuisance. A tired husband chased home so the trip could finally breathe. She did not know at all that it was only the beginning of what I had silently built from before. Let me go back 3 days to a Tuesday evening with nothing worth mentioning, because all big things usually begin like that. Not with the sound of fireworks, but with something so small and quiet that you almost miss it. It rained that day in the East Atlanta Village area, a light rain covering the roof without warning. I had just returned from a site near the downtown area, still in my work boots, wood dust stuck in the crevices of my hands that would never wash completely clean no matter how long I scrubbed. The porch light was still on. Amara sat at the kitchen table doing homework, braided hair tied high with a claw clip, tongue sticking out of her lips in the way she always does when focusing on fraction math problems. Elias was in the living room, still wearing his soccer cleats, a matter that normally would make his mother nag about the rug, except Simone had not returned yet. She texted an hour before that. Team bonding party is running long. Do not wait for me. I cooked dinner. Grilled chicken, rice, string beans that Amara really likes because I do not drown it in butter like my mother always does. I sat with my 2 kids at that kitchen table, listening to Elias complain about his coach, listening to Amara explain a science project about soil erosion with more passion than many adults have for their real jobs. And I thought, in the way I had thought thousands of quiet nights before, that here, this exact moment, is the whole reason I work. I did not know at all what was waiting for me. I just did not know yet. But 3 days later, standing at that airport gate, in my head a plan was already forming. And Simone did not know at all how far I was willing to go to protect the thing she was planning to throw away. I entered the airport's business lounge, sat down at a corner table right next to the glass door, where I could watch planes taxi without having to look at anyone's face. I ordered a cup of black coffee. I opened my laptop. And for the first time in a very long time, I allowed myself to look straight into the finances that Simone and I had built together. The part that perhaps, because I was too tired, too trusting, or too afraid, I had never examined closely. At first, it was just a small matter. I logged into the joint account, the account that pays the mortgage and tuition for the 2 kids. Nothing unusual. But tracing 3 clicks deeper into the linked accounts section that Simone set up a few years ago to easily manage expenses, I saw something I did not recognize. A second account, opened 14 months ago, registered with a mailbox address in the Buckhead area, an area we had never lived in, never done business in, had absolutely no reason to be involved with. I sat with that for a long time. The sound of the ice maker behind the bar clattered steadily. The sound of a child crying at a table 2 seats away. Then I opened the transaction history. Throughout the past 11 months, over $63,000 had flowed out of my carpentry workshop's account. Money that should have been for buying wood, paying workers, paying for permit fees, poured straight into that second account. Her name was still on the list of signers, from when she still helped me keep the books in the early years, before the workshop grew larger than the kitchen table could hold. I never removed her name. I never had a reason, until now. After that were smaller transfer amounts, always under $3,000, always spaced 1 or 2 days apart, as if someone had read an article teaching how to avoid drawing attention. A few of those amounts ended up in an account under the name A. Cole, Adrian. That was not anger, at least not yet at that moment. It was a special stillness that appears right before anger. The the stillness of a house right before a storm arrives. I kept tracing. A payment at the Four Seasons Hotel, $280, on a Tuesday in March. Exactly the week Simone told me she went to a team bonding meeting in Savannah. I remembered because that week I took Amara to the dentist alone, sitting in the waiting room thinking my wife must be very tired from that bonding meeting. Out of habit rather than suspicion, I looked up Adrian's name. His social media was wiped clean. Old photos disappeared. An engagement announcement post from 2 years ago could no longer be found anywhere, as if someone had wiped clean a whole chapter of life. I put it all into my head, in the way I always memorize a crack on a foundation before knowing how deep it goes. I closed the laptop, finished the coffee. Then, because a man in my position had learned how to still continue building the frame even when the wall is cracking, I made a decision more important than everything else in this story. I decided not to say a single word. Not yet at this time. I decided to collect, just like how I gather materials before a construction project, silently, fully, not letting anyone know what I am doing until every puzzle piece has fit together. My father taught me that lesson even before I could hold a hammer with a straight arm. Measure twice, cut once. He always said that, his hands placed over my hands, guiding how to use a circular saw outside the yard of our old house in Decatur. He once built a whole row of built-in cabinets for half the street we lived on, and he never cut wood before going through the whole project in his head twice. A part of me, sitting in that lounge with a laptop full of things I did not want to believe, was only doing exactly what he used to teach. That evening I did not drive home, but back to my mother's house in Decatur, 20 minutes to the east, the porch light still on like from the days I was still a little boy climbing those few steps with scraped knees. My mother, Corinne, 65 years old, was still sharp enough to notice my walking gait change from across the yard. She came out to open the door, reading glasses pushed up on her silver hair. "You did not call ahead," she said. Not a question, an observation, in the way she always speaks. "I need to use the old tablet," I said to her. The one Simone left behind from the time she still often dropped by. My mother's face did not change, but something behind her eyes did. The stillness of a woman who had waited a long time for a conversation that she did not want to open by herself. "It is in the drawer under the cupboard," she said, her two hands intertwined in the way she always does when mentally preparing for something. Still there since Easter. That tablet, an old iPad Simone used 2 Christmas seasons ago, then forgot to charge in the living room. Forgotten in the way people forget things they no longer think are important. The moment it connected to Wi-Fi, messages rushed in, going backwards all the way to 18 months ago. The majority was nothing. Cooking recipes. A book club group chat she abandoned after 2 meetings. But sunken in there, from a conversation with a phone number only saved under the name A, there was a message from last summer. 10 months before that airport gate. "Marcus will never expect it. He is too busy being a good person already." I sat in my mother's living room with the tablet on my lap for a very long time. Out there, I heard the sound of her rummaging through things in the kitchen. The distinct clattering sound when she took her favorite baking tray down. The tray she only uses for church fairs and moments she does not know how to express with words. My mother never needed words to let me know she had realized something was wrong. She had baked apple pies for the Mount Olive Fair for 30 years now. And somehow every year I also came home carrying a new burden on my shoulders. There would always be a slice of pie ready on the table before I could even open my mouth. I thought about Charlotte. 2 years ago, I turned down the biggest contract of my career, an interior project for a whole hotel chain that would double my workshop's revenue overnight, because Simone said she needed me at home more. That the kids needed their dad around, not chasing after money in another state. I remembered standing in the kitchen explaining to an old partner why I gave up a 6-figure sum. And I remembered exactly that week Simone saying to her sister over the phone, loud enough for me to hear from the hallway, "He is just a carpenter. He always has been," as if the $400,000 I turned down for her had never existed. As if the high blood pressure I started taking medication for that year, because of working double shifts to make up for the missing income, had also never existed. I did not say anything at that time. I did not know if that made me strong or stupid. Perhaps it was both. 2 days later, I drove back to Decatur, bringing a file folder placed on the passenger seat. Bank statements, screenshots from the old tablet. A USB buy had backed up twice, because a carpenter always believes in having more than one anchor point for anything important. My mother came out to open the door before I could knock. She always had that sense, as if smelling the coming rain before the sky turned gray. "Come, sit down, son," she said, leading me to the kitchen table, the very table I used to sit at doing homework as a child. She placed before me a slice of apple pie without needing to ask, because there are things a mother only needs to look to know what her child is needing. "I have not told you everything over the phone," she said, her two hands intertwined in the way she always does when something weighs heavy in her heart. Simone did not just ask me about divorce 7 months ago. She asked me how property is divided in this state. She asked whether you would fight for the house or just leave it be as you always do. Her mouth pursed around the last few words. "There is one more thing." She sent me a video, almost a year ago already. She thought she was showing me how happy she was. "A video?" I asked back. My mother pushed her phone across the table. In it, Simone sat on a hotel balcony, laughing out loud, a wine glass trembling in her hand as Adrian leaned into the frame beside her. "Mom, I have never felt myself living so truly," Simone said. "Mom, do not say anything yet. I just need time to do this right for the 2 kids. I put the phone down very slowly. "I should have told you the very day she sent that," my mother said, her voice trembling for the first time in a very long time I heard it. She asked me not to say anything, and there was a part of pride in me wanting to believe that my silence could still give her time to wake up. I told myself I was protecting your marriage. Only now do I see I was protecting myself from becoming the one to break it. She held my hand with both hands. "That is my fault, not yours." I sat with that confession longer than I showed on the outside. It would have been easier if I felt betrayed one more time, but I understood one thing about her at that moment. 65 years of keeping every crack in the family from splitting wide open teaches people that silence sometimes looks like strength. "You do not owe me any apology," I said to her. "You were just trying to protect all of us in the only way you know." That evening, both kids dropped by. Elias sat at the same table, jaw clenched tight, telling a thing he had never spoken into words. "Last spring," he said, eyes looking down at his 2 hands, "Mom picked me up after practice. Mom was talking on the phone, probably with Uncle Adrian, and did not know I heard it through the speakerphone. Mom said, 'Marcus is just a burden now. Without him, you and I would surely live much better.'" His voice broke. I did not know what to do with that matter. I just thought surely I heard wrong. Something in my chest froze solid. "You did not hear wrong," I said to him, very softly. "But you were also not wrong for not telling Dad yet. That was never your burden to bear." Amara did not say much all evening, just curled up in the corner of the sofa, but finally the little girl also spoke up. "Grandma, is it my fault? Did I do anything wrong?" My mother crossed the room, pulled the little girl into her lap. "No, my dear. Adults make the selfish decisions of adults, and children never, not even once, are the cause causing that matter. Do you hear clearly?" During that week, the matter reached the place Simone worked. Not from me, but from an anonymous whistleblower report sent to the compliance department, warning about unusual financial transactions on her company computer. She had used office hours for almost a year to manage that secret account, and the company's monitoring system had recorded everything. 2 days later, she was suspended from work. She called me that week, a smaller voice than I had heard in many years. "Marcus, please, can we talk? Just the 2 of us." But even before that call, there is one more night I must retell, the last night before the trip, when I still had not revealed anything I knew. That night I found one more thing. An email Simone sent to her superior at the company, asking for leave for what she called a personal transition period, starting right the week after our trip. In the email content, almost like an added sentence just to have it, one line jumped straight into my eyes. "Finally, I am also free to focus on the thing that truly makes me happy." I read that sentence 4 times. Then I folded the laptop, packed the luggage for the 2 kids with my own hands, checked for the last time the note of Amara's food on the spreadsheet, and got into bed lying next to my wife of 17 years like a man who knew nothing at all. She did not know at all what I had known. She did not know at all what I had started to build in the silent hours when she slept soundly beside me, believing she was leading by many steps ahead. Simone still thought she held all the cards at that airport gate, but she had never accounted for a thing I learned after 20 years working in carpentry. You never remove a cabinet from the wall until you know exactly what lies behind the plywood layer. I left the waiting area, found a quiet corner near the customer service counter, phone in hand, and I made 4 calls in less than 20 minutes. The first call was to the airline, canceling all 4 tickets. Mine, Simone's, Elias's, Amara's, using the account under my name, my card, as the primary contact. The second call was to the hotel in Miami, canceling the 3-night Ocean View suite, also under my name, also fully paid 8 months ago. The third call canceled the private tour at Hard Rock Stadium. The fourth call canceled the beachside party package I silently prepared for the last night. A small dinner celebrating 17 years I planned to do a few days early because the real date fell right in the middle of the trip. I want to be honest about those 20 minutes, about what truly lay beneath that calm exterior. That was not revenge. Revenge is loud. It needs an audience. This is something much quieter, and if I am honest, it is even older than anger. That is a man who has spent 17 years swallowing whole every small insult in silence, only now discovering that silence also has a limit, and that limit does not take the shape of a scream. It takes the shape of control. My grandfather answered betrayal with fists, and it robbed him of everything. My father answered it by drinking to shrink smaller each year, until there was almost nothing left to see. I think, sitting there with the phone in hand, a part of me was afraid of becoming one of those 2 people. And canceling the 4 reservations silently, with a receipt for every penny, is the only kind of anger I believe I will not have to regret. I want to make one thing clear. I had no intention of leaving the 2 kids stranded. Right after hanging up with the party organizers, I called the airline back, booking 2 separate one-way tickets for Elias and Amara, flying straight back to Atlanta that very evening, with their aunt agreeing to pick them up at the gate. My children will never be left alone at the airport. Only the trip that Simone humiliated me in front of hundreds of strangers to protect, that trip will not happen anymore. Not for her. Not for anyone she intended to enjoy it with after I left. I was still sitting near the service counter when my phone vibrated. It was the airline employee's voice echoing out, and Simone's panicked voice from 30 meters away. I could hear her, without even needing the call. That whole area probably heard it too, when the system reported all 4 tickets had been canceled. Then my phone actually rang. Simone. I let it ring twice before picking up, not out of malice, but because a person needs a breath before speaking calm words into the middle of a storm. My hand was not steady at all on the phone, honestly speaking. A part of me, the part that said vows in front of 200 people 17 years ago, still did not want to believe this was real. Even when I touched my finger to the screen to answer, "You canceled the plane tickets?" Her voice broke at the last word. Disbelief chasing after anger, chasing after something that sounded almost like fear. "You told me to go home," I said, keeping my voice very steady, the way I still talk to clients when a project just failed inspection. "So I am going home. And I paid for this trip, Simone. Every single ticket, every single night at that hotel, every single minute of that tour. When I go, it also goes with me. You cannot do that to the 2 kids. I already rebooked tickets for Elias and Amara. At 9 tonight they will be in Atlanta. Safe, fully taken care of, just like I always take care of them." I paused. "This was never about the 2 kids for you, right?" She did not answer that question. That silence told me more than any confession. Simone had built all her confidence at that gate on a silent assumption that I would always swallow everything whole. That the humiliation she handed me in the middle of the crowd was safe to hand out because I had never once handed it back. The thing I think she never allowed herself to consider was that the very public performance she used to control that narrative could also turn back against her, the exact moment the man she thought would stay forever silent decided not to be silent anymore. Her fear did not truly lie in the 4 canceled tickets. It lay in the fear of a woman who just realized her story was no longer hers alone to write. While I was still on the phone with her, my screen lit up with an incoming video call from Elias. I switched the call without having time to think, some instinct in me needing to see my son's face amidst all of this. What I saw instead, in the 3 or 4 seconds before he realized the camera was flipped backward, was my wife standing near the staff counter, shoulders trembling, and Adrian Cole standing next to her. Not the kind of a colleague comforting a colleague. Not a quick pat on the shoulder. Adrian's hand placed flat on Simone's lower back, fingers moving slowly, familiarly. The kind of touch only between 2 people who have touched each other like that hundreds of times in rooms no one sees. Simone did not shy away from that touch at all. She was leaning into it. My throat tightened. not out of surprise. A part of me had known beforehand, since the file folder started getting thick on the laptop. But it is a separate pain witnessing a suspicion become the truth right before your eyes, on a 4-inch screen at an airport gate. Elias's face appeared in the frame a second later, and I could see in his eyes he had also seen it. Even before he flipped the camera around, that he had stood close enough to catch the thing I only had time to see in a heartbeat. Dad. His voice broke on exactly that one word. 16 years old and trying his best to sound like a man. Dad, what is going on? Mom is crying so hard. He did not need to say more. I heard Amara's voice behind him, small, scared. Mom? What is going on? Over the phone. I caught all the chaos at the gate. People were filming, staff trying to calm the crowd, and my wife's voice shattering along with every beat of real time. Marcus, please, Simone pleaded. Do not do this in front of them. Marcus, please, do not do this in front of the kids. I am not doing anything. Simone, I said, very softly, and I truly meant that. I am just not doing the thing I always do, which is pretending I do not see anything so that everyone else can be comfortable. I could hear it happening over the phone even before witnessing it with my own eyes. An airport gate sliding from the usual boarding chaos into something people will still talk about for many days later. Somewhere in the crowd, at least 2 phones were filming. By that evening, a 15-second clip recording the scene of my wife sobbing at gate B14 had gone viral on the internet with a brief caption. I never posted it, never even watched it entirely. But it already existed, in the way everything still exists once the internet decides it is important. Simone called me a cruel person. She called me petty. At one point, according to Elias recounting that evening with a voice still trembling, she screamed that I had ruined everything. Quite an interesting word choice, I must admit, from a woman who had silently ruined something of her own for over a year. I did not stay to watch the rest of it unfold. I trusted Simone's sister would bring the 2 kids home safely, and she did it. Both of them arrived back in Atlanta 4 hours later, Amara asleep by the window, Elias silently staring into space the whole journey, according to what their aunt recounted. Many hours later, after sitting with my mother until the coffee cup went cold twice, I drove back to my house in East Atlanta Village. It was almost 10 at night. The porch light I left on since early morning was still burning, patiently, like it always is. I sat in the truck for a long time before going inside, 2 hands placed on the steering wheel, listening to the crackling sound of the engine gradually cooling down. I thought I would feel victorious. I did not at all. I only felt the distinct exhaustion of a man who just witnessed the thing he spent 17 years building finally collapse, publicly, undeniably, even though I myself was the one to pull out the last board. What I did not yet know, sitting in that quiet space of the driveway, was that my mother had carried one more thing in her heart for the past many months. A thing that would make everything I found out today look so small in comparison. This was only the beginning of the true reckoning that Simone did not know at all was still waiting. That week, news about Simone spread to where she worked. Not from me, but from an anonymous whistleblower report sent to the compliance department, flagging unusual financial transactions on the company computer. She had used working hours for almost a year to manage that secret account, and the company's internal monitoring system had recorded every detail. 2 days later, she was suspended from work. She called me that week, a voice smaller than I had heard throughout many years living together. Marcus, please, can we talk? Just the 2 of us. I met my wife, the person who was still my wife on paper at that time, at a coffee shop in East Atlanta Village. She looked completely different compared to the image at the airport. The cream-colored travel outfit had disappeared. Her eyes were red, framed with dark circles. She kept spinning the thin gold bracelet on her wrist. That restless habit I had noticed at the airport but did not yet understand why. I was wrong, she said. But you must understand, Marcus. I felt myself invisible. You were always working, always tired. I just wanted to feel myself needed by someone, one more time. Her voice lowered. My mother left when I was 9 years old, never came back. I think a part in me has spent a whole life fearing being left behind, rather than proactively leaving first. That sentence explained more than any bank statement could. Simone never had the intention of becoming a woman who silently drained her own family's finances. She only had the intention of never letting herself feel that helpless one more time. And somewhere along the way, that fear had calloused into control, leaving before being left behind. That is a real wound. but a real wound only explains a choice. It does not justify that choice. I understand the feeling of being invisible, I said finally. I turned down the $400,000 contract in Charlotte because you needed me at home more. I worked night shifts with sky-high blood pressure, so you did not have to feel the shortage when you reduced your working hours. I never made you feel yourself as a burden for needing me, Simone. So I need you to sit with the difference between feeling not seen and proactively planning for a life without me for over a year, while I was still building for you. She had no answer. Elias told us what he heard in the car, I added, about the matter of me being a burden. Her face went pale. He was not supposed to hear that sentence, she said. No, I agreed, but he already heard it, and he will still remember it for a while more. That is your fault, not mine. I stood up, leaving a $10 bill for both cups of coffee, and stepped outside into the Georgia afternoon without looking back. That evening, Elias found me sitting on the swing my father hung from tens of years ago. He sat next to me for a long time before speaking up. "Dad," he said, "I want to stay with you." Both me and Amara already talked with each other. I wrapped my arm around his shoulder, feeling him lean into me. "We will find a way," I said to him. One board at a time. Around that same time, Adrian was exposed to have a girlfriend, soon to be married, working in the commercial real estate industry in the downtown area. Her family started asking questions about the disappeared weekend getaways and the unexplainable hotel payments. Whatever Simone and Adrian believed they were building together also disintegrated almost immediately when that truth was exposed. The compliance investigation at Simone's company ended with her firing in October, with the official reason being abusing company time and equipment to manage personal finances. A colder way of saying that the account she used to hide from me finally caught up with her from another direction. The divorce finalized in September of that year, silently, through the lawyers of both sides. There was no drama in court because neither of us wanted the children to have to stand before the witness stand. I kept the house in East Atlanta Village. The person who used to be my wife did not fight for it. I think at that time, a part in her had understood that there was nothing left to win by continuing to fight. My carpentry workshop, in the meantime, did a thing I did not expect. News spread in the furniture, making circles in Atlanta in the way news always spreads among people who work with their two hands and live relying on reputation. And somehow, even though I had never told this story to any client, my reputation as an honest business person, not cutting corners, still showing up on time, even though the personal foundation was cracking, started bringing in orders bigger than anything I had ever received before. By November, I had to hire 2 more assistant workers just to keep up with the schedule. Simone texted me many times during those weeks, mostly text messages, opening with an apology, then gradually, through enough text messages, sounding more like a justification. I discovered through my accountant, when reviewing the old books with new eyes that now knew what to look for, that even after all of those matters, she still tried to keep nearly $9,000 still lying in the accounts related to my workshop, the amount of money she did not have time to transfer away before the investigation began. The amount of money she was silently finding a way to take to a place I and the 2 kids could not trace. I did not confront her loudly about that matter. I simply closed all accounts, opened new accounts only under my name alone to control, and let the lawyer handle the rest in writing. The kids gradually breathed easier. Elias had the best soccer season ever, and I did not miss a single match, not one match, whether home or away, in the way I used to not always be able to do, back when I was running double shifts to make up for the spending that only now I realized was Simone's. He scored the deciding goal in the match against the rival school in October, and when finding me in the stands afterward, sweating profusely, grinning from ear to ear, he did not say anything about the goal at all. He just hugged me, very tightly, in the way he still used to hug when he was 7 years old. Amara wrote me a letter that same month, for a school assignment about the person the little girl admires, and left it on my nightstand without saying a single word. "My dad builds things," the little girl wrote, "not just tables and chairs. Dad has rebuilt our whole family after it broke apart, and Dad never once complained how heavy it was. I still keep that letter, folded in my wallet." One quiet Saturday evening at the end of October, I gathered all of Simone's remaining papers in the house, old tax return papers, a few boxes of things she never came back to take, and I burned them in the fire pit in the backyard. The exact fire pit I built with my own hands the year Elias just turned 12. I did not do that out of bitterness. I did it because a carpenter must know when a wooden frame is truly ruined, when there is nothing left worth keeping from what lies underneath, and when it is time to clear the ground to build up something new. I stood there for a very long time after the last page of paper curled into ash, watching the thin smoke fly up to the sky that just turned purple at twilight. And for the first time in over a year, I no longer had the feeling I was still waiting for something to happen. It had already happened. I just only truly stood on the other side of it. Around that same time, at Amara's parent-teacher meeting, I met a woman named Renata Ashford, a literature lecturer at a nearby college, who also served as a volunteer academic advisor for gifted students in the area. Amara's science project about soil erosion, it turned out, had impressed enough for her to recommend the little girl into an advanced study program. We talked for 20 minutes in the school hallway, smelling strongly of new paint and old paper, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, about nothing important at all. Amara's project. A book Renata was teaching. I did not ask for her phone number that day. I was not ready yet, but I noticed, for the first time in a very long time, that I had smiled without needing to try, and that smile did not cost me anything at all. 1 year later, almost to the exact day, I stood in the stadium with Elias and Amara on both sides, watching a World Cup qualifying match under lights so bright that the whole grass field turned silver. My mother sat next to Amara, wearing the sweater she always wore to church to ward off the evening cold, clapping every time the home team advanced near the 30-meter goal area, whether the play deserved it or not. "You did very well, Marcus," she said during a quiet moment of the match, gently patting my knee in the way she always did since I was a little boy enough to sit on her lap. "Truly well." I was just about to answer when Amara pulled my sleeve. "Dad," the little girl said, "I need to show you something. I kept it all this time. I did not know when was the right time." The little girl took out her phone, along with a small spiral-bound notebook she had clearly hidden in her backpack for many months. Inside the notebook, in the neat handwriting of a 13-year-old child, was a diary entry written from over a year ago, even before the day at the airport, before anything came to light, recounting a night the little girl heard her mother talking on video with someone in the next room. Amara had recorded almost word for word what she heard, in the way children still often do when something feels wrong, but they do not yet know where to place it. Then the little girl opened the video. A short clip she accidentally recorded on the old tablet 14 months before the day at Gate B14, back when she was still testing a new camera app and did not realize she had caught her mother's voice in the background. In it, Simone's laugh rang out clearly, without a bit of care, as she said to Adrian, outside the frame, "The two kids love him very much. That is the problem. But that matter will not be important once I show the court how many nights he is not at home. Marcus will personally hand me exactly what I need, without ever knowing he did so." And in the corner of the frame, in a fleeting moment, I caught the light reflecting on the thin gold bracelet on her wrist. The bracelet she used to wear at the airport. The bracelet she did not stop touching in the coffee shop many months later. I realized, at that time, it had never been a restless habit at all. That was a gift from someone else, worn for all that time right before my eyes, and I had never let myself look closely enough to ask. 14 months. That is the amount of time she had planned for everything. Not only the matter of leaving, but also the strategy behind it. Using every overtime shift, every dinner I missed, to build her lawsuit, while I was still running those shifts near this exact stadium to keep my family standing firm. I sat with that for a long time amidst the noise of the stadium, the crowd cheering somewhere far away for a play I did not even see. It should have hurt more than this. Perhaps it had hurt as much as it could hurt a long time ago, from that airport gate, from my mother's kitchen table, from all the nights silently finding out one more puzzle piece. What I felt instead, when looking at the cautious, honest face of my daughter waiting to see if doing so was right, was something close to gratitude. "You did not do anything wrong, my dear," I said to the little girl, pulling her into my lap. "Not back then. Not now. You only held on to the truth until you were ready to hand it to Dad. That is courage. It is not easy for an adult to do that, let alone a 13-year-old child." Elias, sitting on the other side of me, had been silent, his jaw clenched tight in the way he always does when suppressing something. Finally, he also spoke up. "Dad, you are the strongest person I have ever known. Not because you have never been hurt, but because you have never let it turn you into a cruel person. I do not know if I could do the same. Amara leaned her head on my arm. I am proud of you, the little girl whispered, almost drowning in the noise of the crowd. I just want you to know that. Dad does not need to prove anything anymore, I said, mostly to myself, though I think both kids heard it. Not with your mother. Not with anyone. Dad only needs to be exactly the person Dad has always been, and let the truth catch up on its own time. My mother reached over and held my hand. Her hand was still firm, even though she had shouldered this family through every storm for 65 years. You have broken that cycle, son, she said softly, only enough for me to hear. Your grandfather never forgave a betrayal without letting himself sink into bitterness. Your father also almost fell into that path, not just once. But you found a way to go through it while still keeping your dignity intact. That is a whole generation healed, sitting right here, tonight. The home team scored a goal in the 78th minute, and the whole stadium exploded. 68,000 strangers stood up together, and my family also stood up following them. My mother clapped with all her heart. Elias screamed until his voice was hoarse. Amara jumped up so hard that her braids bounced on her shoulders, while I, standing silently amidst all that noise, finally felt completely at peace. I watched my son scream until his voice was hoarse. My daughter jump up for a goal she will forget in the next few days. And my mother, 65 years old, still having enough strength to cheer like a young girl. I thought about the foundation I once thought was solid 17 years ago, the foundation that turned out to be hollow inside for a long time without me knowing it all. And I thought about the foundation I am standing on right at this moment. Not perfect, not the thing I used to draw out in my head at age 25, but real. One board at a time, I personally measure, personally assemble, hiding nothing. If you are listening to this story and in your heart there is a nail sticking up that you are still trying to step over, do not step over it anymore. Stop. Look straight at it, no matter how uncomfortable facing it is. Thank you for staying with me until the very last minute of this story. If there is a moment in here that makes you remember a foundation of your own, leave it in the comments section. I will read every single line. See you again in another story.